Hey everybody, good afternoon. So today I just want to show you a little hack that I use for anticipating and hopefully avoiding choppy markets. Now, before we begin, I want to show you something very quickly, which is this screenshot from the Discord room. This is from this morning, 9:54 a.m. Eastern Time. And you'll notice right here, I say be cautious of chop in here. Now, full disclosure, I did not follow my own advice stupidly. Normally, I would have. I think today I was a little bit overconfident going into the markets today. And also, I think I had a little bit of FOMO, to be honest with you. And I was up about 6 points prior to that comment, trading MES is what I was trading today. And I ended the day down about 6 points. And again, should have just followed my own advice. I didn't follow my trade plan today. That was sort of the reality of it. So, okay. So what I want you to look at here is what I like to do is I take the volume profile drawing tool. So in NinjaTrader, this is in the order flow tool suite. There are some third-party volume profiles as well. And I'm going to draw that from this swing low down here up to this pivot high. Okay, this is often how I use my profile. I like to draw it over ranges. You could have drawn it starting back here. That would have been fine too. I just don't necessarily need that data for what I want to show you. This is taking a little bit long to load. I apologize. I just fired up NinjaTrader after lunch, and my computer is just being a bit slow at the moment. So hopefully this will load quickly. Sometimes if I just wiggle it, it starts to work. And then I will show you. So this, by the way, I have the chart queued up here to about 9:54. So this was this candle right here. This is a 5,000 tick chart, and this is at 9:54 and 38 seconds. So it's right around the time that I sent that post out. Let me try this again. I don't know why this isn't showing up. There it is. Okay. So here's what I want to show you. And to highlight this, let me just draw a little ellipse over this, and it'll help you to see what I want you to see. I always draw this poorly. How do I move this thing? There we go. Okay. I want you to look at this volume cluster here. Okay, so notice I trade price action and supply and demand. I use the volume profile for confirmation. Look at down here, how when price came up here, it consolidated, it pulled back a little and then pushed up. And we got this nice little pullback to this very clear and clean volume cluster. And compare that to up here, where we have, you can see the price action's kind of sloppy. We have a volume cluster, and then price moves above it, but there's not really, see how there's a super low volume node in between this volume and then this next volume here. Again, this one, nice high volume cluster with a very distinctive low volume area in between. Look at these two high volume clusters. The low volume in between is not very distinctive, right? It's only about halfway as deep as the valleys of all these other clusters here. And when I see that, very frequently what happens is these two peaks are actually, price is going to chop around in here, and it's going to become one volume cluster. So when I see that, and even though from a supply and demand standpoint, right, this sort of looks like you have a supply area here, and we're pulling into it, right? Now, depending on how you enter, if you entered on a limit order, like somewhere in the middle of this zone, you probably could have gotten a one-to-one scalp here. I enter on a candle break personally, or usually what I'll do is I'll go to a lower time frame and I'll do a break of structure on a lower time frame. So, you know, we pull back into this zone, but what would generally keep me out of this trade is this look on the profile. So the price action, I mean, it's not the strongest push up on the price action, but you do get this nice little steady grind up. It's a significantly higher high, which is pretty decent. And so you'd think, okay, nice pullback and we can trade it. But if we move the price action forward a little bit, you can see we got this push, we got the candle break, so that could have been an entry there off this signal bar, and then it failed and it went back down. And what we're going to do here is we're going to also adjust our profile if it cooperates, hopefully, as we scroll here. I suppose I could do visible range, but look how already those two, like even as we just get into this, right? It's starting to fill in more in the middle. It's filling in even more. And then by the time we get to here, those two separate volume clusters have become one volume cluster with the peak essentially right in the middle. This was the prior high volume node and a prior high volume node. And so we see this all the time. And now basically what we have is that this isn't really like here we made it a range and we left that range and then came back and tested it before pushing back up. If I'm going to come back to a supply zone, what I want to see is a clear range or a clear volume cluster of that consolidation. I want to see us leave that range, leave this entire volume cluster, get away from wherever the low volume is, and then come back to it and test it. And now when we look at this, we can see this was not one range that we left and came back and tested. It was actually the formation of a single range. See what I mean there? So here, let me show this a different way. I'm going to go back to before this retracement, and let me just do this path, okay? I want you to look at this right here. So we have this push up, right? We pull back, we push up, we pull back, okay? So this is peak 1, 2, 3, 4. So between 1 and 2, we created this consolidation, which created this nice high volume node with a low volume node here at about 46.25, right about at the top of where that swing point number 1 is. We pushed up to swing point number 3, clearly left this cluster behind, okay? Clearly left that behind. And I'm talking about this cluster right here. Okay, so you can see we left the low volume area. We created a new little area up here, but with a nice deep low volume area, consolidated, then pulled back, retested this high volume area, which is your area of demand, right? And then pushed up again. Now, let me just get rid of this so it's not too sloppy on the screen. I just want to make sure you guys really get this before I move on. Here, we don't have that clear, distinct low volume area. So although it looks like we left this first, right, this is the first volume cluster. It's from this consolidation right here. It looks like we kind of left that and then pushed up, formed a new sort of area of volume, and now we're pulling back to test. What I'm saying is that these two volume clusters, you can already see, you can anticipate because there's not a deep low volume in between. They're too close together that this is probably going to become one larger consolidation area whenever you see that. And so as we move forward, and as I take this profile and draw it out, that's exactly what we start to see. Look how this is now one super clear high volume cluster, one super clear zone, okay? And if you see, we got a little push up and then a pull back and then this other push up. You know, this is where I screwed up. Like I was seeing this and I tried to get long here. I was aiming to take out these highs. We never made it up. That's where I got beat up a little bit. I said 954, which was here. Avoid the chop, and I didn't. I did not follow my own advice, which is just sort of stupid, right? But you can see how that became Instead of just continuing this sort of grind up with these higher highs and higher lows, we got this, higher low, higher high, came back in, kind of higher low, failed to make a higher high, another sort of higher low, kind of a higher high, but didn't breach this first one, and then broke down to a lower low again, and then we got even lower, probed back down. Now we test some previous volume, and then we shot up. Okay, we tested this last other volume node back here, and then we shot up. So in reality, I should have avoided all of this, looked at this area of demand right here. Okay, get rid of that. This is the last cluster. So we could have looked at something like this. I probably, this isn't a very clean cluster to me. I don't know that I would have caught this move, but you can see this is, I'll draw the zone based on the volume. Okay. This is the volume cluster. So this is the last area of demand before we pushed up and found acceptance up here. We came back and tested that, and then we got this nice move up. Now, at the very least, you could have entered here off the break of this candle and go for a retest of this previous POC. That would have been a perfectly acceptable trade. I had already walked away at this point. That's a 1-to-1, so it would have been about a 1 to 1.5 R trade. Or if you're, you can scalp one and leave a runner and take this out. You can see we did, I had a feeling we were going to take this high. It was a weak high, and we did eventually take it, but I should have avoided all of this, waited for the deeper pullback, then gotten long. That was my own mistake. So when you see two volume clusters that are close together and where the low volume node between them is not wide and not deep, right? So it's not wide and it's not deep. There's a high probability that price is going to consolidate right in the middle of that area, okay? Why don't you look at this? Look where this low volume is. I'm going to put this between these two peaks, okay? That's where that low volume is. There's a high probability price is going to consolidate between there. And what are you going to get? You're going to get a high volume node right in the middle of there. And you don't want to, I always say, you don't want to trade around a developing high volume node, because as high volume nodes are developing, its price is chopping around there, sticking in that area. That's how the volume's accumulating. If you're going to trade off of a high volume area, what you want to look for is that price has left that volume cluster and then is coming back to it to retest. So we had this volume cluster down here, price left it here. Let's do this. Okay, look at the volume. Price left it, already started finding acceptance up here. You have a nice deep low volume area, and then price comes back down in, still maintaining low volume, the edge of that volume cluster, tests this. You can see there's this little kind of volume ledge here, the top of this consolidation, and then pushes up, right? And then same thing here. We had this little consolidation, volume cluster here. We left it, started to form a new volume cluster, came back, tested that high volume area. This is the HVN of it, is like right where we tested, and then pushed up. So you have to have left the volume. If a high volume node is developing, avoid trading around a developing high volume node. You're gonna get chopped up. So I hope that's helpful for some of you guys. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe. I don't put out a ton of videos, but I do try to put out videos that have really practical and helpful knowledge. You can, of course, join our Discord room. Right now, it's free. It will probably not always be free, but right now it is free. And you can join. I trade almost every day, and I post a lot of what I'm doing and what to look for, as long as some other members of our community that are great. And I hope to see you guys there.